Hello everyone and welcome back to Scripted Fear. Today I am bringing you 5 of the most disturbing true horror stories from the remote wilderness corridors and forgotten communities of the Pacific Northwest. In this episode, we will travel deep into the fog-covered mountain passes, the isolated logging roads, and the coastal towns where the rain never fully stops and the trees grow so thick that daylight feels like a rumor. These are accounts gathered from ordinary people who experience things they cannot explain, things that change the way they understand the world. Each story you are about to hear has been meticulously reconstructed from first-hand testimonies, documented records, and in several cases, evidence that was never made public. To protect the privacy and safety of those involved, certain names and specific locations have been carefully changed. If you are new here, make sure you subscribe to Scripted Fear for true horror content that will stay with you long after you turn the lights back on. Hit that notification bell so you never miss when we go into the dark. Now, let us begin. Story 1. The Watcher on Logging Road 7. I am a 31-year-old male and I work as a timber surveyor for a private forestry company based out of Olympia, Washington. I have been doing this work for 7 years. My job takes me into areas that most people will never see. Deep forest terrain that is not accessible by normal roads, miles from the nearest town, in terrain where cell service does not exist, and the nearest human being might be 10 miles in any direction. I am comfortable with isolation. I grew up in rural Washington, and I spent most of my childhood in the woods. I know how to read the forest. I know when something is off. What happened to me on Logging Road 7 in the Olympic Peninsula in March of 2024 was off in a way that I am still trying to process. My company had contracted with a landowner to survey a section of timber in a remote area of Clallam County. The parcel was about 340 acres of second-growth Douglas fir and western red cedar, accessed by a private logging road that branched off the main forestry road about 11 miles in. The survey was a 3-day job and I was doing it alone, which was not unusual. My company often sends single surveyors for jobs this size. I had a truck, all my equipment, enough food and water for a week, and a satellite communicator for emergencies. I drove out to the site on a Monday morning in late March. The weather was what you would expect for that time of year on the peninsula. Overcast, cold, with a light rain that had been going on for 4 days straight. The logging road was in decent shape, a little muddy but passable. I set up camp at the end of the road where there was a small cleared area and spent the first day doing my initial perimeter survey. Nothing unusual. The forest was quiet except for the rain and the occasional sound of birds. It was on the first night that I noticed the light. I was sitting in my truck eating dinner around 7 p.m. when I saw it through the windshield. A light in the trees, maybe 300 yards to the north. It was white, not a warm yellow like a lantern or a campfire, but a cold flat white like an LED flashlight. It was moving slowly through the trees, not erratically, like someone stumbling around, but deliberately. Steady pace, consistent direction. I watched it for about 10 minutes. It eventually disappeared deeper into the forest. I told myself it was probably another surveyor, maybe a hunter, possibly someone hiking a trail I did not know about. This was private land, but that did not stop people from wandering in. I went to sleep and did not think much more about it. On the second night, the light came back. Same time, approximately 7 p.m. Same direction, same cold white color, but this time it was closer. Instead of 300 yards, it was maybe 150, still moving through the trees at that same deliberate pace. I got out of my truck and called out, asking if anyone was there. The light stopped moving the moment I called out. It stayed completely still for about 20 seconds. Then it went out. I stood there in the rain and the dark for a minute, listening. No footsteps, no voices, nothing. Just the sound of rain hitting the canopy above me. I went back to my truck and locked the doors. On the third morning, I was doing survey work about a quarter mile from camp when I found the markers. They were wooden stakes driven into the ground in a straight line running parallel to the logging road. There were 11 of them, spaced about 10 feet apart. Each stake had something tied to the top, small bundles wrapped in what looked like burlap. I crouched down and looked at one of them more closely without touching it. Inside the burlap, I could see what appeared to be small bones, bird bones maybe, or small mammal bones. I did not touch them. I photographed them and moved on. That afternoon, I asked my supervisor to check the records for that parcel. I wanted to know if anyone else had worked that area recently, if there were any authorized activities on the land besides my survey. He checked and told me no. No one had been out there in at least 14 months. Those stakes were not 14 months old. The burlap was still relatively clean, and the wood was pale but not weathered. Someone had put them there recently. On the third night, I did not sleep. I sat in the passenger seat of my truck facing north, watching for the light. It came at 7:03 p.m. This time it was close enough that I could see it was not just one light. There were three of them. Three white lights moving through the trees into loose triangle formation, about 50 yards from my camp. They moved in perfect unison, maintaining the same triangular spacing as they traveled along the edge of the clearing. I started the truck. I was not going to wait to find out what this was. As I turned the truck around to drive out, my headlights swept across the tree line and I saw them. Three figures standing at the edge of the trees. They were not holding lights. They were not carrying anything at all. They were just standing there, evenly spaced, watching my camp. I could not make out faces or details in the brief second my headlights crossed them, but they were tall and they were completely still. I drove out of there without looking back. I made it to the main road in about 20 minutes and did not stop until I reached the first town with a gas station. I reported what I had seen to both my supervisor and to the Clallam County Sheriff's Office. My supervisor was skeptical. The sheriff's deputy I spoke with was not. He asked me to describe the location of the stakes in detail, and then he went very quiet. He told me he would send someone out to look at them. He asked me how long I had been working in that area and whether I had eaten or drunk anything I had not brought with me. I told him no. He said that was good. He did not elaborate on why that was good. I never got a follow-up call from the sheriff's office. I called them twice over the following month and was told both times that the matter was under review. When I called a third time, I was told there was no record of my report. My company sent a different surveyor to complete the job. He finished the survey in 2 days and reported nothing unusual. But when I asked him specifically about the wooden stakes, he said he had not seen any stakes anywhere on the property. They were gone. I still drive through that part of Clallam County sometimes for work. I always take a different road now, one that does not pass the turnoff for logging Road 7. I do not know who those three people were. I do not know why they were watching my camp for 3 consecutive nights. I do not know who built those markers or what the bones inside them meant, but I know that someone wanted me to leave that place. And I know that whoever they were, they knew exactly when I would be watching and exactly when to stop.
Story 2. The Voice on Channel 7. I am a 38-year-old female and I have worked as a maritime radio operator for the United States Coast Guard Station in Astoria, Oregon for 11 years. I monitor distress frequencies, coordinate search and rescue operations, and maintain communication with vessels along the Oregon and southern Washington coast. In 11 years, I have handled hundreds of distress calls. I have talked people through capsizing. I have guided rescue boats to coordinates in zero visibility conditions. I thought I had heard everything that could come across a radio. What I heard on Channel 7 on the night of September 14, 2023, is something I have never been able to explain. And I am someone whose entire professional life depends on accurate, rational assessment of information. Channel 7 is a working channel, not a distress frequency. It is used for routine communications between vessels and marinas, for scheduling, for cargo coordination. It is not a channel where you typically hear anything unusual. I was monitoring several frequencies simultaneously that night, standard practice during a storm watch. The weather off the Oregon coast had been deteriorating for about 6 hours, and we had advisory alerts out for vessels in the area. At approximately 11:22 p.m., I heard a voice come across Channel 7. It was a male voice, calm and clear, no static, which was unusual given the weather conditions. He said he needed to report a vessel in distress at coordinates he then read out clearly. I immediately pulled up the coordinates. They placed the vessel approximately 40 miles offshore, west-northwest of Tillamook Head. I responded, identifying myself and our station, and asked the caller to confirm his vessel name and position. He repeated the same coordinates without giving a vessel name. I asked again. He said the name of the vessel was the Eleanor May out of Newport. I pulled up the registry for Eleanor May. There was a vessel by that name registered out of Newport, Oregon, a 42-foot commercial fishing vessel. I noted the registration and asked the caller to describe the nature of the distress. He said the vessel had taken on water and was listing badly. He said there were 4 people aboard. I initiated rescue coordination and contacted our search and rescue team. We had a rescue boat deployed within 12 minutes. I maintained communication with the caller throughout this process, getting whatever details I could. He remained calm throughout, which I noted as unusual. People calling in maritime distress are almost never calm. Our rescue boat reached the coordinates 47 minutes after the initial call. They found nothing. No vessel, no debris, no oil slick, no sign that any boat had been in that location. The sea conditions were rough, but not impossible. If a 42-foot vessel had sunk there would have been something. I called back on Channel 7. The voice was still there. He said the vessel had gone down. He said they were in the water. He gave me a slightly different set of coordinates, about 2 miles east of the original position. I redirected the rescue team. They found nothing at those coordinates either. Over the next 90 minutes, the voice gave me 4 different sets of coordinates, each one slightly different from the last, each one yielding nothing when our team arrived. My supervisor pulled me off the call at that point, and we flagged it as a possible hoax or a malfunctioning automated distress system. But here is what my supervisor did not know because I had not told him yet. During the final exchange I had with the caller, I asked him directly if this was a genuine distress situation. He paused for the first time in the entire conversation. Then he said something that I wrote down immediately because I did not trust my memory. He said, "This happened in November of 1987. I have been calling every year since. I am sorry that no one was ever able to find us." I sat at my console for a full minute after that transmission ended. I went into our historical records that night. I searched for any maritime incidents in that area of the Oregon coast in November of 1987. I found a Coast Guard incident report from November 19, 1987. A commercial fishing vessel called the Eleanor May out of Newport, Oregon, had sent a distress call and subsequently disappeared. The vessel had 4 crew members aboard. An extensive search was conducted over 5 days. No wreckage was ever recovered. No bodies were ever found. The vessel was declared lost at sea on November 26, 1987. The incident report noted that the distress call had been received on Channel 7. I have worked that station for 11 years. I have never heard another transmission on Channel 7 that I could not account for. But every year in the week of November 19th, I check the logs carefully, and every year there are coordinate entries that no one can explain. 4 sets of coordinates, each slightly different from the last, logged by whoever is on duty that night. None of them remember taking those calls. They are there in the logs, but the operators have no memory of them. I transferred to a different station 2 years ago. I do not work the Oregon coast anymore. But I checked with a colleague who is still at Astoria last November. She said the coordinates came through again. 4 sets, no vessel found, no record of who made the call. The Eleanor May has been missing for 37 years. Whatever is left of her crew is still out there, 40 miles off the Oregon coast, still calling in every November, still waiting for someone to find them.
Story 3. What Lives Benneth Silver Creek Trail? I am a 26-year-old male, and I am a trail maintenance worker for the Oregon Department of Forestry. I have been doing this job for 3 years. My work takes me to remote sections of trail that most hikers never reach. The back sections, the connector routes, the maintenance paths that exist in records but are rarely walked. For the most part, it is quiet, solitary work that I enjoy. I like being in the forest. I like the physicality of the job and the silence that comes with it. I stopped liking the silence after what happened on the Silver Creek Connector Trail in the Mount Hood National Forest in June of 2024. The Silver Creek Connector is a 4.2-mile trail that links 2 more popular hiking routes. It sees very little traffic, and maintenance crews visit it maybe twice a year. My assignment was to clear some fallen timber, replace 2 damaged trail markers, and report on overall trail condition. Straightforward work that I estimated would take 2 days. I camped at the trail midpoint on the first night. The first thing I noticed was the smell. About a mile into the trail on the first morning, I started smelling something that I can only describe as a combination of wet earth and something chemical, almost like a cleaning product, but wrong. Somehow, slightly sweet underneath. I have been in forests in every season, and I have never smelled anything like it. I made a note of it and kept moving. The second thing I noticed was the silence. Full bird silence. The Mount Hood National Forest is not a quiet place in June. There should have been birdsong constantly. Varied thrush, Swainson's thrush, winter wren. There was nothing. Not a single bird sound for the entire first day. I have done maintenance work in those forests dozens of times, and I have never experienced that kind of total bird silence. I set up camp that evening at the midpoint clearing and ate dinner as the light faded. Around 9 p.m. I heard the first sound. It came from somewhere underground. A low, rhythmic sound, almost like a very slow heartbeat but mechanical. One deep pulse, silence, another pulse. It repeated without variation for about 20 minutes and then stopped. I pressed my hand flat against the ground and felt it. Whatever was making that sound was beneath me, coming up through the soil. I could feel it in my palm clearly. I had no equipment with me to investigate underground phenomena. I recorded the sound on my phone and went to sleep with it still playing periodically in the background. By morning, it had stopped. On the second day, I found the entrance. I was clearing a section of trail about 2 miles from my camp when I noticed that the trail dipped toward a small rocky embankment. At the base of the embankment, behind a screen of sword ferns, was an opening in the rock. Not a natural cave opening. The edges were too regular, slightly squared at the corners in a way that rock does not naturally form. Someone had worked those edges at some point. It was about 3 feet wide and 4 feet tall. I shined my flashlight into it. The opening descended at a shallow angle into darkness. The beam of my flashlight reached about 15 feet before the passage curved, and I could not see further. The smell that I had noticed the day before was stronger here. Much stronger. I did not go in. I photographed it and noted the GPS coordinates. What made me step back and leave was not the opening itself. It was what I found on the ground in front of it. There were boot prints in the soft soil, multiple sets, coming and going. They were fresh. The soil around them was still damp. Someone had been using this entrance recently, within the past 24 hours. I was alone on a trail that sees almost no traffic, and someone had been walking in and out of an unmarked underground passage in the last day. I finished my work quickly and hiked out that afternoon instead of spending the second night. When I reached the trailhead, I drove directly to the district ranger station and reported what I had found. I showed them my photographs and the GPS coordinates. The ranger on duty, a man I had worked with before, looked at the coordinates for a long time without saying anything. Then he told me he would forward my report to the appropriate department and that I should go home. I asked him if he knew what that opening was. He said he could not discuss ongoing land management matters with contractors. I submitted a formal written report to my supervisor. 3 weeks later, I received a response saying my report had been reviewed and that the feature I had described was a known geological formation that was being monitored by the appropriate agencies. A known geological formation with fresh boot prints in front of it. A known geological formation that pulses rhythmically beneath the ground. I have requested reassignment away from that section of the Mount Hood National Forest. My request was approved without explanation or pushback, which tells me something in itself. The smell is the thing I cannot stop thinking about. I have tried to describe it to people and no one can identify it. One person suggested it could be hydrogen sulfide from volcanic activity, which is present in that region. But hydrogen sulfide smells like rotten eggs. What I smelled was different, sweet underneath, wrong in a way that I do not have the vocabulary for. I drive past the Silver Creek trailhead sometimes on my way to other work sites. I have never stopped. I do not look at the trail. Some openings are better left sealed. Story 4. The last resident of Harlan Cove. I am a 44-year-old male and I am a real estate attorney based in Seattle. My work occasionally requires me to travel to remote areas of Washington and Oregon to handle property disputes, title issues, or estate matters involving land that has not changed hands in decades. Most of this work is tedious and procedural. In 15 years of practice, I have dealt with everything from disputed boundary lines to unclaimed estate properties sitting empty for 30 years. Nothing prepared me for the Harlan Cove property. The matter was referred to my office in February of 2024. A client needed legal assistance verifying the title on a coastal property in a small community called Harlan Cove, roughly 40 miles south of the Washington state border on the Oregon coast. The property had been in the same family for 87 years. The last documented owner, a man I will call Harold Webb, had died in 2019 at the age of 91. He had no documented heirs. The property had been sitting in legal limbo for 5 years. My job was to conduct a title search, verify the chain of ownership, and determine whether the property could be transferred to my client's development company, which had expressed interest in purchasing the coastal land. I drove out to Harlan Cove on a Wednesday in late February. The drive took me down a county road that was not on Google Maps, found only through the written property description in the deed. The community, if you could call it that, consisted of a handful of structures spread along a quarter mile of coastal bluff. A small store that appeared to be closed. A boat launch that looked like it had not been used in years, and about 6 or 7 houses, most of them dark. The Webb property was the northernmost house on the bluff. It was a two-story structure, probably built in the 1950s, in reasonably good condition for an abandoned property. The yard was overgrown, but the house itself had not fallen into serious disrepair. I photographed the exterior and made notes. When I turned to leave, I saw a woman standing on the porch of the house next door. She was elderly, probably in her late 70s or early 80s, watching me with an expression I could not immediately read. I introduced myself and explained that I was there on legal business relating to the Webb property. Her expression changed. She asked me to come inside. Her name was Ruth, and she was, as far as she knew, the last permanent resident of Harlan Cove. She had lived there for 52 years, since she had moved there with her late husband in 1972. She told me that the community had once had about 40 residents and had been a functioning fishing community with a small cannery. The cannery closed in 1989, and most people had left over the following decade. I asked her about Harold Webb. She was quiet for a moment before answering. She said that Harold had been a good neighbor for many years, a quiet man who kept to himself. She said he had not died in 2019 as the records indicated. I told her I had the death certificate on file. She said the death certificate was real, but that Harold had not died in 2019. He had disappeared in 2019. There was a difference, she said, and not a small one. She told me that in October of 2019, she had noticed that Harold's house was dark for several days. No lights at night, no smoke from the chimney in cold weather, no sign of activity. She had called the county to do a wellness check. When officers arrived, they had found the house empty. Harold's truck was in the driveway. His food was on the counter, partially prepared like he had been cooking, and simply walked away mid-meal. His coat and boots were by the door. No sign of Harold. No sign of a struggle, no explanation. The county had waited the required period and then issued a death certificate for administrative purposes. The property had been placed in probate limbo. I asked Ruth if she had any idea what had happened to Harold. She looked out her window toward his house for a moment before answering. She said that Harold had not been the first person to disappear from Harlan Cove that way. She said there had been others over the years, always the same pattern. House goes quiet. Truck still in the driveway. Food on the counter or a meal half-eaten. No note, no warning, no goodbye. She named 4 other residents who had disappeared the same way between 1991 and 2019. 2 men and 2 women. None of them found. No bodies, no contact after the disappearance, nothing. I asked her if she had ever reported this pattern to authorities. She said she had, twice. The first time was in 1997, after the second disappearance. The sheriff's department had investigated and concluded the person had left voluntarily. She had submitted a written statement describing the pattern of similar disappearances, and she had never received a response. Before I left, Ruth said something that I wrote down exactly as she said it, because I knew I would not remember it accurately otherwise. She said, "Whatever comes for people in this cove comes at night in November. It has done so since before I moved here, and it will do so after I am gone. I am still here because I do not go outside after dark in November. Harold forgot one year. That is all it takes." She would not elaborate further. I completed my title research over the following week. The chain of ownership on the Webb property was clean. My client could legally purchase it if they chose. I submitted my report with a single additional note, an informal addendum recommending that my client conduct independent due diligence on Harlan Cove before proceeding. I documented what Ruth had told me. I included the names of the 5 residents who had disappeared and the dates as she had provided them. My client's development director called me a week later to ask about the addendum. I told him what Ruth had told me. He was quiet for a moment and then said they were going to pass on the property. I drove back through Harlan Cove one more time in April to deliver some final paperwork to Ruth. Her house was dark. Her car was in the driveway. The door was unlocked. Ruth was gone. Her reading glasses were on the kitchen table next to an open book, face down to mark her page. It was April, not November. Whatever Ruth's rule was, it did not hold anymore. Story 5. Mile marker 31. I am a 29-year-old female, and until 8 months ago, I worked as a night dispatcher for a long-haul trucking company based in Portland, Oregon. My job was to monitor GPS tracking for our fleet, coordinate with drivers on the road, and handle any issues that came up during the overnight hours. On any given night, I was tracking between 20 and 30 trucks moving through Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and Northern California. I want to be clear about something before I describe what happened. I understand exactly how the GPS tracking system works. I have used it every working night for 4 years. I know the difference between a system glitch, a signal dropout, and normal driver behavior. What I observed on the night of August 7th, 2024 was none of those things. At 2:14 a.m., I was monitoring a driver I will call Tom, a 12-year veteran of our company running a regular route from Portland to Spokane on Highway 84 through the Columbia River Gorge. Tom was experienced, reliable, and had never had a serious incident in 12 years. His truck was equipped with our standard GPS unit, dash camera, and the emergency communication system that all our long-haul drivers carry. At 2:14 a.m., his GPS signal showed him at mile marker 31 on Highway 84 eastbound. Speed was 62 miles per hour, which was normal for that stretch of road. I noted it and moved on to checking other drivers. At 2:31 a.m., I looked at Tom's tracker again. He was still at mile marker 31, speed showing 0. I assumed he had pulled over, which drivers do sometimes for rest stops or unexpected mechanical issues. I noted it and waited. At 2:47 a.m., he was still at mile marker 31, still 0 miles per hour. 17-minute stationary at 2 a.m. on the highway was beyond a normal pullover. I called Tom on the communication system. He answered on the second ring. He sounded completely normal, not tired or stressed. I asked him if he was okay and why he was stopped. He told me he was not stopped. He said he was moving fine, no issues, and that he had just passed mile marker 51. I looked at my screen. His GPS showed mile marker 31, speed 0. I told him what my screen was showing. He said that was impossible because he was definitely moving. I could hear the engine in the background. He said the road looked normal, and he had not stopped since his last break 3 hours ago. I told him to check his own GPS unit on his dashboard. He looked and told me it was showing mile marker 51, consistent with what he was seeing through the windshield. Our systems were showing 2 different locations 17 miles apart. I asked him to keep driving and keep talking to me. For the next 11 minutes, we stayed on the line. His dashboard GPS showed him moving steadily east, mile markers ticking upward normally. My screen showed his truck parked at mile marker 31 for the entirety of those 11 minutes. Then at 2:58 a.m., his GPS signal on my screen jumped. It went directly from mile marker 31 to mile marker 54, skipping 23 miles of highway in a single update cycle. His speed showed 62 miles per hour. Everything looked normal. I asked Tom if anything had changed in the last few minutes. He said no. He said the drive had been completely uneventful since we spoke. I flagged the incident in our system and wrote a detailed report. Our technical team reviewed the GPS logs the next day. They told me the unit had malfunctioned and showed a false stationary reading for 44 minutes. They could not explain why the malfunction had started and stopped at such precise times, or why Tom's onboard unit had shown a different reading from my central system throughout the event. They noted it as an anomaly and filed it. I pulled the dash camera footage from that night as part of my own review. The footage covered the entire disputed window. Tom was clearly moving throughout, exactly as he had described. The road was visible through the windshield, mile markers passing at normal speed, nothing unusual visible on the road itself. But there was something in the footage I noticed when I reviewed it carefully. Between 2:31 a.m. and 2:58 a.m., the same section of road appeared 3 times. Different timestamps but identical footage. The same curve, the same damaged guardrail section, the same tree silhouetted against the sky on the right shoulder. It appeared at 2:31, at 2:44, and at 2:51, with Tom's truck apparently moving normally through it each time. Like whatever section of Highway 84 that is between miles 31 and 54 had played twice, like the road had looped. Our technical team reviewed the dashcam footage and told me the repeated sections were a result of a firmware error that caused footage to be duplicated during the same window as the GPS malfunction. Firmware errors, they said, sometimes cascade across multiple systems simultaneously. I know enough about our systems to know that has never happened before in 4 years of my working there. I know enough to know that the probability of a GPS malfunction, a dash camera firmware error, and a 23-mile data jump all occurring in the same 44-minute window on the same truck is not something that firmware errors explain. I still think about mile marker 31. I have never driven that stretch of Highway 84 myself, and I have no intention of doing so. Tom is still driving for the company. I asked him once, months after the incident, whether anything had felt different that night, whether there had been any moment where the drive had seemed strange. He thought about it for a long time. Then he said there was one thing. He said that somewhere around mile marker 30, he had seen a man standing on the shoulder of the highway facing the tree line. Just standing there at 2 a.m. facing the trees with his hands at his sides. Tom had looked in his mirror after passing and the man was gone. He said he had not mentioned it in his report because he thought it sounded crazy. He said the man had not been wearing any reflective gear. He said if he had not seen him at the last second, he might have clipped him. He said the man had been completely still and that something about the way he was standing had made Tom's skin crawl. He never saw him again. And no one standing on the shoulder of Highway 84 at 2 a.m. in the Columbia River Gorge was ever reported or identified. Whatever was at mile marker 31 that night, I believe it is still there, standing in the dark at the edge of the trees, waiting for the next set of headlights. Those were 5 true horror stories from the Pacific Northwest, from the fog-covered logging roads and the silent forest trails to the coastal bluffs and the mountain highways where something still moves in the dark. If any of these stories felt familiar, if you have experienced something in the forests or the coastal towns of Washington or Oregon that you cannot explain, leave it in the comments below. I read every single one. If you are new to Scripted Fear, make sure you subscribe. We go into these places so you do not have to. Hit the notification bell, and I will see you next time when the lights go out and the stories begin.